Welcome! We are super excited to introduce Sonic Extensions, a completely new experience for Omnisphere. Sonic Extensions is a new brand of innovative products that are built by Spectrasonics. Now you probably know that Spectrasonics has been around for a long time, that we started with sample libraries, and that now our main focus is our virtual instruments. But now we're introducing something new that we're also doing, which is Sonic Extensions. Each Sonic extension focuses on a specific aesthetic with next-level sounds, purpose-built custom controls, and exclusive new effects. Not only does each one have a vast array of stunning new sounds, but there's also some brand new ways of interacting with them, including a unique interface with custom controls. In fact, these are the first custom control patches for Omnisphere. We're also using deep multi-sampling features like multi-channel audio, round robins, articulations, and much more. Each Sonic extension also includes 2 brand new exclusive effects units that work on anything inside Omnisphere, including your own imported audio and satellite instruments like Keyscape and Trillion. Sonic extensions also have an awesome new feature called Scenes, which gives you very cool sonic variations all inside one patch. And there's even special brand new Omnisphere features that have never been available before. So this is super, super cool stuff, and there's never really been anything like this. And of course, each Sonic extension is fully supported by the amazing Spectrasonics team. So today we are launching with 4 incredible new Sonic extensions. All of these are available now, and clearly each of these titles is completely different and designed to complement each other incredibly well. Each one is really its own sonic universe that's so much fun to explore. So be sure to go to all the walkthrough videos on the site to find out more. But there's actually something else that adds even more value, which is our unique discount system for Sonic extensions. Here's why we did it. Have you ever got something that went on sale not long after you bought it? Doesn't that suck? I just hate that feeling. Well, the great thing about Sonic extensions is that you can always buy with confidence because our discount system is available 24/7, 365 days a year. That's right, no blowouts, no holiday sales, just a very simple discount system that's always available. It's so easy. If you buy 1 Sonic extension title, it's full price. Buy 2 at once for 20% off, buy 3 or more at once, and you get 30% off. And don't forget that while these are sold exclusively on the Sonic Extensions web store, remember that of course you need to have Omnisphere to use them. So if you don't have Omnisphere yet, here's a tip. I highly recommend that you first go get the actual boxed version of Omnisphere from your nearest authorized Spectrasonics dealer, since it's definitely the best deal with the included USB drive for quick installations and a lot more reasons. So that's just a quick overview of what this is all about. Sonic extensions is actually something we've been working on for a long time, and we could not be more excited to bring it to you guys at last. Have fun checking out the new site and all the amazing new products, and of course, stay inspired and keep creating. As you can imagine, one of the top requests we get at Spectrasonics is for more guitar sounds. So hey, we listened, and at long last, we are absolutely thrilled to introduce Nylon Sky. Now this is a very special new Sonic extension that brings the most incredible nylon string acoustic guitar ever done for Omnisphere into entirely new dimensions. The master artisan behind Nylon Sky is the one and only Bob Daspit, who created all the original classic guitar sounds in Omnisphere. And those killer guitar patches are legendary, but of course, we've learned a lot since then. So for us, it's super exciting that Nylon Sky has all the advancements that we've made since then, from deep sampling articulations and custom effects design, to innovative software development and multi-channel sound sources. This is seriously just awesome stuff. Oh, and don't miss the behind the scenes video, which goes into a lot more detail about Bob's history with us and our good friend Hans Zimmer, and a lot more. Okay, so enough talking. With the included new Sky effects, there's a lot to cover today, so let's get into it. Let's start with the Nylon Sky Expressivo guitar. And this is totally dry with no effects at all. That is so much fun to play, and it's incredibly responsive to your touch. And that's because of the super deep, detailed sampling, round robins, articulations, release noises, legato. We'll get into all of it. Okay, so now let's take a look at the special custom controls that we have for the main guitar sounds and see where we can go with it. Now, each of the controls on the interface is connected in sophisticated ways to advanced parameters way behind the scenes in Omnisphere. But the custom controls make them really easy to use. Let me show you this special realism knob here. So when I was playing, did you notice all the little noises that were happening? All those little string squeaks and thumps and breathing and fret noises? They make a big difference in how real it sounds. Let me just show you what that sounds like here. So this realism knob lets you dial in exactly how much imperfection that you want. So let me take it all the way down. Okay, so that's with none of it. And then let's try about 50%. And then all the way up. So you can hear that makes a huge difference in the realism of the sound, hence the name of the knob. Okay, now in the center of the interface, we have a mixer, which allows us control over our multi-miking setup. So the first pair of mics is an XY configuration, and that gives you a very focused sound. It sounds like this. Then the next stereo pair is a wide stereo, and that sounds like this. Then we have a mono tube mic that has a more traditional kind of sound. And you can make your own blends of these mics to your own taste because it's all completely in phase, which is incredibly useful. So all these advances are really powerful, and for fun, let's try comparing Nylon Sky against the original classic nylon in Omnisphere's library. So here is Nylon Sky. And here is the original. So as you can hear, we're talking about a difference in light years. Once again, here is the Nylon Sky one. Clearly it sounds amazing, but the expressive realism is really just the starting point of Nylon Sky. So let's now get more into the sky part of it. Okay, so you'll notice here on this side of the interface that we've got an analog delay part of the interface here. And this has an interesting story. Bob's own company is Westco Pedals, and they make some fantastic stomp boxes. So one day, Bob was working in his workshop on a prototype analog delay pedal that sounded super vibey, and Bob wondered if he could figure out a way to actually sample it for Nylon Sky. And he did it in a super clever way. So check this out. It's dry, and then we'll bring in the delay. So that tone is really, really creamy. It's the real thing. But what's awesome is that we can actually change the time. And the feedback, and we could even change the pitch. So this gets really interesting because we could put the, let's put up a fifth, and now the echoes are now a fifth higher. Okay, let's put them up an octave and change the time a bit here. So that's just super, super lush sounding. So I'll bring that back, and then now let's add in some of this beautiful reverb here. In fact, I'm going to turn the delay down. And now I've got, crank that up a bit. Let's give that a longer tail. Sounding really nice. And we can even add in some clouds. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later in the demo. Check this out. So now let's bring in the analog delay again. We've got that set to an octave, and check this out. Pretty awesome sounding. That is amazing, right? It's crazy how we can go that spacey with these sounds, and that's the Sky part of Nylon Sky. And of course, one of the most powerful features of sonic extensions are scenes, which you can think of like snapshots of the custom controls. Each patch includes 5 different scenes, which you can easily select with your computer's left-right arrows like this. So let's listen to the 5 scenes. Scene 1 is our original dry sound. Scene 2 is more of a produced solo sound that is really inspiring. And scene 3 is more like a traditional classical type of sound. And scene 4 is an ambient, pitch-shifted echo type of sound. Very, very cool. Let's try scene 5, and this is more of a bright studio sound. So here's the crazy thing. We've only played 1 patch in Nylon Sky so far. Okay, so maybe we should play another patch. Why don't we go to our next one? And one of the things that's so great about these guitars is how much character they have. So I'm going to load up this blues legato patch, which features the legato articulation. And we have it set to minor thirds here, and you can control whatever interval you want to use. But this is really cool. Check this out. And of course, you can still get super pristine, clean sounds too. So check this out. This is the clean guitar. And you can kind of go nuts with the harmonics too. So check this out. This has a lot of legato and a lot of fun stuff. It's pretty nutty. That's so much fun to do. And that would actually be pretty tough to do on a real guitar. There are also some incredible guitar textures here too. And so let me load up this next sound here, which is kind of a tribute to Brian Eno. And instead of the analog delays, we've got a wash here. So check this out. The wash. Make it pitch bend down. So you can make all these amazing kinds of textures in Nylon Sky where you get into kind of these hybrid sounds, which are really, really interesting. So let's try another one. And this one is called Nylon Sines, and it's an amazingly huge sound. And all it really is the guitar you've been hearing, but layered with a sine wave an octave down. So check this out here. That is just huge. So the playable side of Nylon Sky is just awesome. But of course, there's more. So let's check out some of the incredible rhythmic patches that Nylon Sky has. So this is one of the strumming sounds. So how is this happening? Well, we've added some incredible new features to Omnisphere's arpeggiator, so let's check it out. Now we can go back to Omnisphere's interface by clicking this custom controls button here and head over to the arpeggiator, and look at that. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff happening in there, including new strumming modifiers. There's a strum section where we have downstrokes where we can have the full downstroke of all the strings. We can have just the low strings, the high strings, inverted chords, just the high and low strings of the inverted. Then you have the upstrokes with all of those variations too. And each of the steps has its own slider. This little mini slider controls how fast the stroke is happening. So you can modify and even create your own strumming patterns as well. And there's loads of new strumming presets here in the presets list for the arpeggiator. Look at that. Awesome. So what is this here on the right side? We have humanity and life. What is that all about? Yep, these are a big reason why these strumming patterns sound so authentic. The new humanity control adds subtle timing imperfections, and when you add in some life, it makes the dynamics more lively too. So these are really incredible new features for Omnisphere's amazing arpeggiator. So in addition to fingerstyle playing, we also have picked and even flamenco style playing, which uses more of the fingernails. So in this patch, I'm going to turn up the realism control. Let's crank that up all the way, and let's check it out. Okay, I promise not to say ole. Here's another strumming one that I love that's got some really interesting mutes. And the custom controls on this patch have some interesting variations for pattern. So let's try variation 3 here. And then number 5. And then number 7. This is interesting too. So up next is flourishing mutes, and this one is a really unique muted kind of strum example. Let's check it out here. And this has got some really great scenes, so let's try scene 3 and see what that sounds like. And scene 4 is really, really awesome. Check this out. So as you can hear, it's responding incredibly well to when I'm playing with dynamics, and it follows all of that, which is pretty incredible for an arpeggiator. Let's move on to Dreaming of Venice, which is a great ambient cinematic tremolo kind of sound. Check this out. Really, really beautiful. Now let's see where we can take it with the custom controls. We've got a control here called sequence motion, and let's see what that does. Okay, now I'm going to change the length and watch what happens. We'll increase the reverb. Bring the filter down. Turn up the delay. So you can really take Nylon Sky in some very non-guitar directions too. I love that kind of organic hybrid thing. It's super, super cool. All right, so this next one is Finger Triggers, and it's a super cool reverse harmonics kind of sound. So check this one out. And let's play with the custom controls a bit. Let's bring up some more reverse. And play with the filter a bit. And let's give it some reverb. Turn up those clouds. Change the length. Super ambient and fun. Okay, let's move on to rapid ear movement, which is one of my favorite sounds because it has an almost organic sample and hold vibe to it. And check this out. Such a cool sound. Let's play with it a little bit. Try filtering it down a little bit. Lower the length. Turn up the reverb. The clouds. Isn't that crazy that that is a nylon string guitar? So it just shows you the power of what you can do with Nylon Sky. Okay, next up is harmonic bath time, and this has some really beautiful sparse harmonic plucking and some really cool scenes. So here's the first scene. So let's check out scene 2. Really kind of dry and very, very percussive. Let's see what this next one is. Almost like a Collegno pizzicato kind of sound. And let's see what this one's doing. So scenes are great, and it's really important when you're checking out the product that you go through them, because sometimes there'll be scenes in there that really surprise you, like maybe something like this. So yeah, so the ARPs are just killer. Okay, so last but not least, let's talk about the new effects. Nylon Sky includes 2 brand new exclusive effects for Omnisphere, and they're really like the secret sauce of Nylon Sky. Probably my favorite thing is that you can also use them on anything inside Omnisphere, including your own imported audio and on satellite instruments like Keyscape. Let me show you what they sound like. First, we'll listen to Sky Channel, which is a Class A level channel strip based on modeling vintage consoles from the 70s, and it's tuned specifically for this guitar. But it also sounds incredible on anything you run through it. So let's try Keyscape's piano. So I'm going to call up Omnisphere, and I've got Keyscape's piano playing inside it. Okay, and that's what it sounds like, just flat. Okay, and now let's bring up Sky Channel, and right away, so already we're getting some nice character. You can hear it's kind of cutting through a little better. And let me just try cranking up the input, and I'll bring the output down to compensate. Now it's going to saturate that input a little bit. Cool. Now let's try adding some top end. I'm going to bring that gain back. And now we've got and then we'll go to the second page, and you can see that we've got an analog processor on it, and also an enhancer, and this is really cool. This is like the old trick that they used to do with Dolby A in the 70s, where you blend in a little of the original Dolby A signal. So here's what it sounds like without it. And then we'll bring in the enhanced signal, and now it really cuts through. And let's bypass it, and here's the original. So it's got an incredible tape machine simulator and a lot more. So Sky Channel is really, really cool. Next up is Skyverb, which is absolutely the most gorgeous reverb ever for Omnisphere. This is an incredible effect for anything you throw into it. So let me show you what it can do on something simple like Keyscape's Celeste. Okay, so here's the Celeste sound dry. And then let's see what happens when we turn Skyverb on. So you can hear that clouds effect that's happening an octave up. So I'm going to turn that down just so you can hear the regular reverb. Let me lengthen that. Beautiful sound. And then let's bring in the clouds again. Turn up the clouds some more. And then let's turn the trails up, and now we've got and there it goes into space. Isn't that amazing? And it'll just keep going. Okay, and without it, so amazing what you can do with Skyverb. It's so beautiful. So hopefully that gives you a little taste of the sonic possibilities and just how amazing this sonic extension is. With these lush new effects and the incredible new guitar sounds that Bob has designed, Nylon Sky is something that will inspire for a long, long time. I know it will for me. So enjoy.
Hey guys, I'm thrilled to tell you about Nylon Sky, an incredible new sonic extension, which at its core is based on the most beautifully expressive nylon string guitar ever done for Omnisphere. This world-class level of craftsmanship was captured by someone whose legacy has shaped the world of sampling for decades. To those in the know, he needs no introduction, but we thought it would be cool to share the story of the masterful artist behind Nylon Sky.
I've always viewed myself as a craftsman more than an artist. I've always tried to help people with their projects. That's really the point of this, is it's the next level of making another tool that will help you do your job.
Bob was 19 when I met him, and Bob had been snookered into being my roadie. And Bob is not a big guy, and he just had his parents' band, and I needed some help, so I said, hey, you want to come work for Roland?
Eric was really the one who taught me how to sample. I mean, he was probably my most critical mentor of everybody that I worked with.
Bob was just like this sponge. He just picked up everything. He went very quickly from being a Padawan to being like an equal and somebody I was learning from.
Oh, he's definitely a craftsman. I'd call him nearly psychotic. No, he does. He sits there and he tweaks and he tweaks and he tweaks and he goes, rubbish, I'll do it again. And he will do it again, and he will do it again and again, and he will get it until he's happy.
The thing that really turned me on about him was here was this really kind of mild-mannered guy, and he could shred on the guitar like Van Halen and still sit down and develop these beautiful sounds.
You know, obviously Bob is a master sampler, and but I think of him as a musician, really, and the sweetest man you could ever meet.
He started working at Roland R&D, and I mentored him in all the different kinds of sampling techniques and sound design and stuff. And he started to get so good at it, he was so advanced that he came to the attention of a lot of the top composers in LA, particularly Hans Zimmer. Roland loaned Hans Bob back in those days.
I think Bob was the first one, obviously here in the context of working with Hans back in the early 90s, that sort of turned me on to the fact, oh, you could have guitars and you could have different keyboard sounds and you could do all this interesting stuff.
He's got a great imagination, and he'll bring something to the party. You know, if I phoned him up and sort of said, I've got a problem, I really want to, you know, I love a Yaley tambour. I want to get it into the score, but, you know, they're just enormous. I can't buy one and bring it over to England. He said, just leave it with me.
One day, Hans said to Bob, hey, you play guitar, right? Because I have all these guitars, and it would be awesome if I could play these on keyboard. So Bob was like, sure, I'll do it. So Bob started coming up with all these new techniques. So he created Hans Zimmer guitars, and then that became one of Spectrasonics' first sampling products. And those are actually the guitars that are in Omnisphere. So the guitars are very famous in Omnisphere, Glorious Guitars, and all those kind of patches are some of the favorite sounds in Omnisphere. And Bob actually did those back in the early 90s. That's how advanced he was, is that stuff is still considered just phenomenal.
It's a testament to doing good work, which these guys, Bob, Eric, and the crew produced, still stands up. So I think that says something about the work.
He's one of the first people to bring this idea of trying to capture the character and the soul of an instrument.
There's a psaltery I use that Bob sampled. It's one of my favorite sounds still. Pristine, clear. I can still hear his fingernails on it.
I'm happy to see that he's still to this day coming up with new stuff. And so he's constantly, you know, looking to innovate and try doing maybe the same thing in a different way, but maybe some new things that you never even thought of before.
So Bob's just gone on to do these incredible things, and I'm super excited about what we're doing with Sonic Extensions as being the next generation of these sounds. One of the requests that we get all the time at Spectrasonics is for guitar sounds. And so it's really exciting to be able to partner with Bob, who's really the master of these kinds of sounds, and actually be creating these new guitar sounds that you can take in all these different directions in Omnisphere through Sonic Extensions.
It's really the marriage of all the technical knowledge I've had rattling around up here for the last 20 years, combined with features of Omnisphere like synthesis, effects, so you can really take what starts out as a great, pristine guitar sound and just go crazy with it.
Because Bob is such an expressive player, that expression actually goes into the samples. And what a lot of people don't realize when they're playing these samples is that it's Bob's expression that they're playing, and that's inspiring them to be expressive. So that's like a really cool way that technology and humanity kind of come together, and Bob's really a master at that.
It's really important to be able to put your hands down on the instrument, play it, and feel like, yeah, that's awesome. I want to write a piece of music now. That's really where everything is headed with sonic extensions.
It inspires you to make music, and that's what it's all about. So it's super exciting to be at this point where Sonic Extensions is now available, and there's real products, and they're amazing, and Bob's been with me the whole time.
I'm really stoked to show you my new sonic extension, Seismic Shock. This entire title is all about huge and powerful sounds. As an electronic music producer, I've always been obsessed with the art and science of making tracks that have a massive impact in clubs and festivals. You probably already know how great Omnisphere is for all kinds of music, but not everyone knows just how amazing it is for EDM and trap production. While I was creating Seismic Shock, I had a blast seeing just how far I could push Omnisphere. At the end of this demo, we're going to get into the brand new, totally exclusive effects that we've designed for Seismic Shock. These two new effects came out super sick. They're like secret weapons for sound design. With nearly 2,000 sounds, there's no possible way I could cover everything in this demo, so this is really just a preview of what you'll find. Okay, here we go. This first patch is a great example of Seismic Shock as a concept. This is a pad, but it's a seismic pad. As you can see here, each patch in Seismic Shock has its own unique layout of custom controls, which are individually designed for really interesting and sonically powerful results. Let's see what they do in this patch. Let's change the melt control. Let's turn up the rate. Let's try the grit control. And add some verb. So as you can hear, you can get a ton of different sounds out of these controls. Another awesome feature in sonic extensions is scenes. You can think of them as snapshots for the custom controls. And of course, it's really cool that I can use the arrow keys too. Let's hear the scenes on this patch. So as you can hear, scenes give you a lot of different sounds in one patch. On this next patch, let me show you kind of a cool performance trick. It's actually really easy to learn the scenes to these pads. And so now you can use this for like live sets. It's really cool. Check it out. So again, all of that is coming from one patch. And now let's check out some of the arpeggiated patches. This is like a really fun pop one. And let's see what scene 2 sounds like. Let's get into some of the more aggressive bass sounds. Check this one out. I'm gonna play it with some drums. Okay, so this sound was actually made using the new DSP wavetables that come with Seismic Shock. Remember that we can look at the Omnisphere interface just by clicking this custom controls button, and now we can see all of the new seismic wavetables. Now these are really aggressive and they're totally different from what's in Omnisphere. They're great to use in your own sound design. Okay, now I want to turn things over to Cedrick, a good friend of Spectrasonics who's been a customer for a long time. He's an amazing producer and he's going to show you what he's been doing with Seismic Shock.
Thanks, Seth. What's good, everyone? I've been having a lot of fun checking out what Seismic Shock can do and making some beats with it. It's really versatile for a lot of different styles, so I'm gonna show you a couple of things I've been working on. First up, let's check out an incredible trick I found for bass. I found this really dope patch called Egg Bass, and it has a big reverb on it. Let's hear it with my drums. This pump section here is available on every patch found in Seismic Shock, and it's pretty crazy what it can do. I'm gonna try putting it on the bass to tame the reverb and make it pump with the drums. I'm also gonna change the rate from a quarter note to a whole note. Now let's add a flute hook. This patch has a nice chiffy flute that works well for a trap melody. And it's also got an interesting module setup that gives an alternate version of the sound that's kind of clipped. So we can alternate the melody between chiffed and clipped. And let's do the same pumping effect and change the rate to a whole note. Let's hear the whole thing now with all the working parts. I really like that pump feature, and adding it to the bass line and the melody really adds a cool call and answer effect. But something that shouldn't be underestimated is how great these patches sound without any modification at all. Finding the right patch can either inspire or keep the inspiration going. Let's check out this next beat. I found yet another really cool bass called Bro Bumper. The mod wheel is already set up to do some pretty interesting stuff. I love that bass line. Let's add some church chords. Lastly, I added this really cool lead that gives me a West Coast feel. Now, as someone that's not as into doing sound design but loves to produce, I found that the custom controls were not intimidating whatsoever. You can get great results really fast, so you don't have to lose inspiration. For example, this pad started off with the first scene, which is super wet. The second scene is drier and closer to what I wanted. Then I tweaked a few of these controls and got exactly what I needed. Let's hear it with Seismic bass and my drums. Although Seismic Shock has some really aggressive and epic sounds, it can still be used to make pop and R&B tracks. Check out this patch called Charred Popcorn, which responds really well to the dynamics. Now, this patch was originally intended for single lines like, but I discovered it works really well with chords too. Let's hear how it sounds with Seismic bass and a few other patches. Now, to all my fellow trap and hip hop producers looking for that ultimate 808, you can find that with this patch called 808 Woofer Warfare. The patch I'm using for the chords is straight fire. This is what it sounds like. Now, I made a few adjustments using the custom controls. I turned up the verb, turned up the zing, which gives that glide up effect, turned on pump, and changed the rate to a half note. Now this patch sounds like this. Yeah. Lastly, I added some bells and turned on the pump with the same half note. Once we add all the elements together with my drums, this is what we got. That was a lot of fun. I'm gonna throw it back over to Seth.
That was awesome, Cedrick. Thanks so much. Okay, so this next sound is the most extreme thing I've ever recorded. I actually went to NASA and recorded where they test spacecraft using sounds that are so loud that the intensity can literally rupture a human's internal organs. So, are you ready to have your guts exploded? Strap in. See, I told you I was obsessed with this stuff. I go into a lot more detail about this crazy sound in the behind the scenes video, so be sure to check that out. All right, let's move on and try a classic 2009 dubstep wobble and see where we can take it. This one has a really cool mod wheel thing going on too. And we can take it to a whole other level with custom controls and scenes. Okay, so obviously not your everyday wobble. Some of these custom controls have a really dramatic effect. Check out how much range the controls have on this bombastic lead patch. So again, the custom controls are doing a ton of stuff under the hood in Omnisphere. Check out what the grunge knob does on this bass patch. It's always worth playing with the mod wheel in Seismic Shock because sometimes there are some really wild and elaborate things happening, like this. Yeah, so it's not exactly vibrato every time. Okay. Everyone loves arpeggiated patches, but let's look at some of the ways they can be customized in Seismic Shock. So I'm going to change the variation knob. And I can turn off pump. And I can turn on the effects. I can tweak that arpeggiator pattern even more if I want. Again, I can easily get into the edit page by clicking the custom controls button, and now I'm in the arpeggiator tab where I can edit the pattern however I want. Here's a totally different kind of sound. This is like an interesting kind of lead with a unique reverb. Did you notice the animated reverb? That's coming from another one of the new effects we'll be talking about soon. Okay, Metal Sleet Stabber. I love this one because you can play it like a punchy bass sound. Or if you hold a note and use the mod wheel, you get this cool rhythmic effect. And the scenes take this sound in all kinds of cool directions. Okay, not for the faint of heart. All right, moving on. Transition effects are an important part of electronic music production, and Seismic Shock has plenty of them. Here's a unique one with more of a futuristic vibe. Sonic Kettlebell is awesome because it combines a sub-bass hit with a synth stab, and it just sounds huge. The Electro Stampede patch is a great example of the havoc you can wreak with Omnisphere's powerful mod envelopes. Check this out. I'm going to add some intensity. Turn up the spread. Now let's check out the envelope that's doing all this stuff. And now that we're on the envelope editor, we can do all kinds of powerful things, like add chaos and tons of other stuff. And to close things out on the sounds, I want to go fully operatic and leave you with Seismic of the Opera. And there you have it, just some of the sounds in Seismic Shock. And finally, let's get into the exclusive new effects. These are a huge part of the sound of Seismic Shock, but you can also use them anywhere in Omnisphere, even on your own imported user audio. First up is Seismic Pump. This is a powerful sidechaining effect that goes way beyond just a simple volume control, with all kinds of creative shapes and timbral shifts. Let's see what it can do on some vocal pads. Let's turn it on and add a kick. And let's change the shape. Try a different shape. And let's go faster. And without it. Now let's try adding Seismic Pump to a simple noise rhythm and see what it does. Turn it on. And some more. And dry. So that's really cool. You can hear there's all of this extra like timbral stuff going on. Next, here's an example of how it can add a lot of movement and character to synth chords. Let's turn it on. Add some more. And change the shape. And without it. With Seismic Pump, it's really easy to turn even basic white noise into all kinds of different effects. Check this out. Turn it on. And change the shape. Add some breakup. And without it. So that's just scratching the surface of Seismic Pump. There's so much more you can do with it. Up next, we've got Seismic Verb. This isn't your average reverb. It combines unique algorithms with crazy compression techniques for extreme, huge sounding effects. It's also the first reverb ever to have an animate feature. Let's try it out on a basic pluck sound. Turn it on. Modulation. And animate. And faster. And dry. Let's check out Seismic Verb on a kalimba. Okay, let's turn it on. And pitch. Animation. And dry. Weren't expecting that, right? It's really cool how you can add intervals to the reverb, turn it into a delay. There's just all kinds of cool things you can do with Seismic Verb. Now let's use it to add punch and overtones to a synth. Turn it on. Now let's play around with it. And dry. And finally, check out the incredible results you can get by combining Seismic Pump with Seismic Verb. All right, let's go. And back to where we started. So yeah, it's ridiculous how much you can change the sound with these effects. All right, that's just an overview of what's in Seismic Shock. With thousands of options, there's so much more to check out. It's been an incredible journey making this thing, and I'm so excited to hear what you do with it. What's up, guys? Welcome. I'm super stoked to tell you about how I made one of the sounds in my new title, Seismic Shock. Now, I knew I wanted to make this title as brutal as possible, so I had to find the loudest sound on Earth. That search led me to NASA, where I found a sound so loud, it can literally kill you. NASA has one of the largest acoustic test chambers on the planet, which is where they simulate the extreme forces of liftoff using sound to see whether or not spacecraft will explode on the launch pad. These intense sonic pressures are created by nitrogen oscillators, which are these gigantic gas-powered speakers that produce a force so devastating that it can actually rupture a human's internal organs. Now, I had the good fortune of working with scientists and engineers to conduct a once-in-a-lifetime recording session to capture the power of this acoustic test chamber. But the only way to really give you an idea of how loud this sound actually is to show it to you. Everything you're about to hear was made with Seismic Shock.
Welcome to Undercurrent. I am really excited to show you this new sonic extension I've created focused on the vast world of dark sounds. For me personally, this was a big creative challenge to discover a whole new direction of sounds using Omnisphere, especially since I've been so involved in developing it since the very beginning. Undercurrent covers a wide variety of moods, from calm, peaceful, and introspective on one hand, all the way to extremely intense sounds. There's a wide range of colors. I had a lot of fun not only creating all the sounds in Undercurrent, but also working with our team to develop its killer new effects. As with every sonic extension, Undercurrent comes with 2 exclusive new effects for Omnisphere. We're going to talk a lot more about them later in the demo, but they're simply awesome. Let's first check out some of the sounds and some of the special features. This first sound features a whole different approach I took to sampling modular synthesizers. The way I did it was to give each key a different sample with its own unique timbre and gesture. Because these sounds are tuned and playable, you can get interesting results like this. A highlight of the controls in Undercurrent is that you can turn sounds like this one into a pulse, like this. Every patch in Undercurrent has a unique set of custom controls. You can see the layout of the controls in this patch is totally different than the last one. The custom controls can really change the sound a lot. This patch has some interesting controls for the color of the sound. You can think of scenes like snapshots of the custom controls. And remember, you can browse scenes with the arrow keys. Let's check out another patch and see where we can go with it. Since the controls are so powerful, the results can be very different from scene to scene. You can turn what you just heard into something more like a bass sound. Or something completely different. This next scene is more like a pure and clear playable synth sound. And this next one takes kind of a left turn that's featuring more distortion and noise. And remember, that's just one patch. Undercurrent has patches that feature a special Evolve button, which introduces intricate modulations that develop over time. So I'm just going to hold the chord. There's very little movement. Let's see what happens when I engage the Evolve button. And that just happened simply by holding the chord and turning that on. having a feature like that can be super handy because programming those kind of things can be time-consuming and pretty tricky. So here's another approach to motion. In this patch, I created a technique to crossfade between 4 different elements. So here's the first element. Here's some noise. Here's a texture. And here's a synth bass. Now I'm going to add motion by increasing the crossfade amount. And now some distortion. Here's one that uses that same idea, but it has a totally different vibe. Going to add some echo. Now let's try this rhythmic patch and hear what the dynamic control does. The LEDs below the pattern knob allow you to change between half and double time, which can be handy depending on the tempo you're working on. Turning off the pattern switch removes all rhythm from this sound so you can play your own lines. So every ARP and BPM patch is also a playable sound, which is very useful. But now let's talk about transitions, which Undercurrent has a lot of. For example, this next patch is divided in 2 sections, a rise and an impact that follows it. The cool thing is that this whole thing is synced to your host. If you change the duration of the rise or the tempo, everything stays in sync. For example, right now, the rise is set to 2 bars, and the next scene is set to a half note with the pitch bend going down. In this next scene, the rise is much longer and the pitch bend is going up. The transitions effect section is very cool. There's all kinds of reverse sounds and a lot more. Just make sure you check it out. Undercurrent has tons of classic synth sounds, and they all have this sort of moodiness. Did you notice the echo was an octave down? We'll get to that in a minute. Here's a spacey ambient pluck, great for sparse playing. Here's a patch with a similar vibe, but rhythmic. Here's a nice, noisy synth with some glide. There's a wide variety of textural sounds in Undercurrent, from dark and ominous to long and evolving to some like this that has intricate motion. Now I'll go to the next scene and reverse it. Here's another one that has more of an underwater vibe to it. So I'm going to hold a chord and add higher octaves. Open the filter. Add some saturation coming from one of the new effects, Under Fire. Change the color. And all that starting from this. Here's one called Impending Doom, a tense, ominous drone using the anxiety control. Let's talk about clusters, which are dissonant chords made by grouping nearby pitches together and are often used in music to create tension. For Undercurrent, I created tons of clusters using analog synths and put them in a menu. This patch has a pressure control. Let's see what it does. Now let's move on. There's many different kinds of pads, from long and evolving to analog sounding. Let's try a few. Let's try a different scene with a faster envelope so I can play quicker. This one is more floating, great for ambient tracks. Now I'm going to add some pulse. This one has a gorgeous analog vibe. This is a more transparent one. Here's one with some fast movement coming from the pulse section in the custom controls. Here's an interesting pad that uses granular synthesis. I'm going to increase the intensity. Now let's move on. There's plenty of textural rhythmic sounds, and this one has a liquid vibe. Of course, Undercurrent has many deep synth basses like this one. Let's add unison and open the filter. Many sounds are distorted and intense, and this one is probably one of the most aggressive ones in Undercurrent. You'll also find many mysterious noisescapes like this one, which I created using a special device called the moisturizer. Let's increase the intensity. Now bring it down. So that's a little bit about the sounds. With over 2,000 sounds total, obviously this is just a taste. Now, finally, let's talk about the effects. Undercurrent includes 2 new exclusive effects for Omnisphere. Of course, they played a big part in creating this sonic extension, but the awesome thing is that you can use them on anything within Omnisphere, including your own imported audio. So let's hear them on different sources. The first one I'm going to show is Under Echo, an ambience processor with a lot of analog tape character, a pitch shifter, a reverb, and more. And it's been a big part in creating the vibe of Undercurrent. Let's check out a couple of examples. I'm going to run a sine wave through it, and let's see what happens. I'm going to turn it on, add pitch shifting, now reverb. And now without it. And because Keyscape can be used within Omnisphere, that means we can use Undercurrent effects on Keyscape's piano. Let's turn it on. Add reverb. Pitch shift it down. And dry. This next example is a cool way to create rhythms using Under Echo. I'm just going to run a simple white noise hit through it. Let's see what happens. I'm going to turn it on. Make the echoes wider. Change the color. Multi-taps. Let's try a different time. pitch shifted. Now down. Reverb. And ducking. Now dry. So you can hear how powerful this is. Now let's check out the glitched out space I can add to this synth sound just by using Under Echo. Let's turn it on. Change the color. Let's pitch shift it. Reverb. Multi-taps. And now without it. So you can see it's way more than a simple echo. You can really get some unique colors with it. You can also get some really amazing pitch bending effects out of any sound. This is really cool. Check this out. Let's turn it on. Let's detune it. Add reverb. Let's go up. And without it. So those are just a few examples of what you can do. Under Echo is a really deep, versatile effect, and it's a blast to use. Make sure you check it out. Now let's talk about Under Fire, a new custom-designed tone shaping effect, which is based on modeling rare analog devices. You can get a wide variety of colors out of it, from warm saturation and subtle crunch, all the way to extremely vicious distortion. With 14 compression models, 15 distortion types, and a flexible EQ, it's one of the secret weapons in Undercurrent. Let's see what it does on a simple kick pattern. Let's turn it on and add drive. Let's tweak the EQ. Saturate the input. Let's change the distortion. And without it. Obviously, it can go pretty extreme, but now let's try going subtle. Let's give Keyscape's Wurlitzer a little more crunch. Let's turn it on, increase the drive, and let's give it a bit of edge. Now without it. Under Fire can also work extremely great on basses. Check this out. Let's turn it on, saturate the input on the EQ. Change the distortion type, and without it. So as you can see, Under Fire can do wonders on anything with low end. Now finally, let's give this synth a little more attitude. Let's turn it on. Let's change the signal path. Let's try different distortion types. And without it. Okay, so those are the new effects. They are a lot of fun to use and explore. As you can see, there are endless possibilities with Undercurrent, and I really hope you have a great time checking it out.
I'm standing above the strange abandoned tunnels that run for miles and miles beneath downtown LA, where Ignacio Longo recorded some of the intense sounds from his amazing new title called Undercurrent. Ignacio is one of the top sound designers at Spectrasonics, and he's absolutely incredible at creating these kinds of dark, cinematic sounds. During Prohibition, these tunnels are where police actually ran their illegal bootlegging operations. Dead bodies were hidden down there. Corrupt politicians used them to smuggle convicts and over $1 billion in cash around the city. Today, most of this vast subterranean network is sealed off and forgotten. Ignacio was able to go down and explore this lost world to capture some of the incredibly disturbing sounds you'll hear in Undercurrent. Check it out.
And now it's time for something completely different, Unclean Machine. This is an amazing new sonic extension for Omnisphere that's all about living in Retroland. As you may know, Retroland is one of our most popular categories in Omnisphere with producers, so we decided it would be a lot of fun to create a whole sonic extension exploring this concept. Now, the mastermind behind Unclean Machine is one of our secret weapons at Spectrasonics, Tolga Gurpinar. Tolga's our director of design, and he's been involved in every aspect of developing Omnisphere. Not only that, he's a wonderful sound designer, and he created everything in Unclean Machine. And we've also got some special guests in the house today to show you how they've been using it in some very cool ways too. Now, since it's got about 2,000 sounds, we're just going to scratch the surface here. So let's get to it and check out a little of what Unclean Machine sounds like. We'll start with a fun arpeggiated sound that's got a lot going on in it. Here we go. This is a very fun patch, but it might be a bit busy to fit into a track, right? Well, since every patch in Unclean Machine has a unique set of custom controls, it's super easy to customize the sound to taste. So let's take a look at the interface. And here I've got controls for all the different elements of the sound. So I'm going to take out the bass, the noise, the top synth. So we just have the chords, and I'm also going to turn down the grime a bit here. And now we've got a nice clean, just the chords very clean. There's also pattern variation, so I'm going to select one of those and then speed it up. And I actually like that noise in there, so I'm going to crank it up. And now let's see what we've got. So it's very fast to play around with the custom controls and come up with your own settings. And what's really cool is that every patch in Unclean Machine has its own unique layout of custom controls that are optimized for each sound. So watch this. When I change patches to the next patch, bam, now you've got a whole new set of custom controls that are made especially for that patch. This Celeste Clouds patch has some really cool color controls that take it in some nice directions. So let's listen to the first scene. And let me change the position here, and it'll almost turn it into a reverse vibe. Bring some of this metal in, and then go the other way. So there's a lot going on with the custom controls behind the scenes in Omnisphere. And scenes are a really special feature of Sonic extensions that let you capture and recall snapshots of the custom controls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture what we've just done here in this free scene and save that. And now we can check out some of the other scene variations without changing what we just did. So here's our original. Here's more of an ambient kind of thing. And then we go like this. And then the last scene sounds like this. So all of that was coming from one patch in Omnisphere. Every patch comes with 5 scenes, and as you can see, you can even check them out quickly by using the arrow keys on your computer keyboard, which is really fast and handy. Unclean Machine has a treasure trove of retro synths, so let's check out a few. This one has almost a VHS vibe to it. Now let's go over to the interface and turn up the wobble, crank up the hiss on our tape, saturate it, and give it a bit more grit too. And now we've got nice. Where's that head cleaner when you need it? This next synth is a very 80s breathy vibe, and I can vouch for its authenticity. And if we put that together with this next patch, which is Angelic Music Box Magic, which sounds like this. Put them together, and now we've got okay, and finally we'll add the last bit of retro cheese here with some funky Casio brass. Okay, and the cool thing is that because Tolga carefully created all these sounds to occupy very specific frequency ranges, they layer together incredibly well. So let's put all 4 of those together, and now we've got long live the 80s. So there's a ton of possibilities, layering sounds, because each one is not so huge sounding. All right, now let's pull up the next sound here. And this one's kind of interesting because this patch has different scenes with different arpeggiator speeds. And Unclean Machine also has lots of amazing basses. So with Omnisphere's stack mode, I can put the low kicker bass here on the left side of the keyboard. And let's hear what that sounds like all together. So some pretty nice stuff happens when you start combining these sounds together. There's also some really fun instruments in the ethnic world category, like these multi-sampled steel drums that have a very dubby kind of vibe to them. And if we come over here to the interface, we can take off the hype, turn down the plex and the radio, and now it's a little more authentic sounding. Or we can bring the radio back up, turn the plex all the way up, and the hype, and now we got more of that dubby. We can even reverse the steel drums, and it sounds like this. Pretty cool, right? Okay, now you're probably noticing the noise by now, and that's one of the coolest features of Unclean Machine, is that you can add all these sorts of background noises into the sounds with the unclean effects, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So check out when we apply it to the piano, we can turn that piano into an art house cinema piano patch, which is one of my favorite sounds in Unclean Machine. So check this out. That cool film projector sound, which is actually from that actual projector over there, is coming from one of the new effects. So let's talk about them. Unclean Machine comes with two amazing brand new exclusive effects for Omnisphere. Tolga designed them specifically for this sonic extension, but probably one of the coolest things is that you can use them on anything inside Omnisphere, including your own imported audio and satellite instruments like Trillion and Keyscape. All right, let's first take a listen to the Unclean Channel effect, which is like having your own sonic time machine. It instantly gives you that old nostalgic vibe on whatever you run through it. So since we can use Keyscape inside Omnisphere, let's start with the dry Wurlitzer. And let's turn on Unclean Channel. Okay, and let's mess around with it some. So we'll turn up the saturation. And now I've got... Okay, and then let's turn up the drift so we get a little more of that going. And we have all sorts of different drift algorithms. So let's try drift 2, and we'll slow that down. And now it's really wobbly. Okay, and we can try the low cut and high cut, and now we've got kind of more of a telephone kind of. And on the second page, we can totally control the noise. And of course, you can remove the noise, but that's no fun. The whole point is to add noise, right? Remember all that noise that you removed back in the old days? Well, now it's back with a vengeance, and we can add it in. So look at all these different noises we can add. We can add cassettes. We can add leakage. We can do VHSs, boom boxes. We've got all kinds of hissing gear. We've got static crackling. We've got even like dictaphone kinds of things. So things like this is a dictaphone in the woods. pretty fun. And you can just go through. There's our film projector. And you can even do things like vape bubbles. And let's try some noise interference, like from cell phones. Or let's say you're in the middle of the ocean and you're on a ship and you want Mayday. So yeah, so you can go totally nuts. And of course we can do vinyl. We've got all sorts of different paper records and vintage vinyl, and it just sounds great. So. And one of the cool things about the noises is that we can put them pre-filter or post-filter. So here's pre-filter, and now the vinyl noise is running through. And then without it. So yeah, crazy what you can do with the Unclean channel. You can add as much or as little of it as you like. It's super, super cool. All right, next up is Unclean Verb. And this is amazing. This is probably the funkiest sounding reverb you've ever heard. This is definitely not your father's lexicon. Unclean Verb is all about character and quirky wobbly spaces. So we're going to try it with keyscapes upright and see what it does. So there's our dry sound, and check it out, what it can do. Super weird sounding. That's kind of the whole idea. And it's really cool. You can control the actual flutter of the reverb, so you can make it very super wobbly, or you could even detune it with modulation, so we can go from a straight piano to like a honky-tonk piano. So let's bring that back and just try, instead of a spring, let's try a different spring here. And let's see what that does. I'm going to turn the time down. And now I've got a little bit of a different vibe. And I can add the crunch in. And it gets real wild sounding. So yeah, so there's tons of things that you can do. You can also change the high and low cut a huge amount and really modify the sound a ton. So here's what it sounds like once again with all of its lo-fi goodness. And without it. So that's just a little bit of what you can do with these awesome new effects. I'm going to turn it over now to our first guest, who's a killer producer and longtime Spectrasonics user. And he's going to show us some super cool ways that he's been using Unclean Machine. So come on up, Cedrick. Take it away.
Thanks, Eric. Over the past few days, I've had so much fun discovering how amazing Unclean Machine is. One of the things that really surprised me is while many producers know about the famous Omnisphere patch in memoriam, which has been used in countless trap and hip hop records, was actually created by Tolga. That's crazy, right? Now he's created the next generation of these sounds with Unclean Machine to help producers take their tracks to another level. Here's one of the patches that's a descendant of In Memoriam. It's called Kids of 50s. That's perfect. Now let's add this taped keys patch for a chord on the downbeat, and let's hear it with the groove. That sounds pretty good, but I want it to sound old, like back in the day old. So we're gonna crank up the hiss all the way and add a ton of drift. I love that you can add as much or as little noise as you want. Now I want to add some high chord stabs to give this beat a bit more flavor. So let's start with this patch. That's what it sounds like originally, but I want something more aggressive. So I made a ton of changes to the custom controls, and now it sounds like this. And then once you add a fat bass from Unclean, you can really get cooking. Let's hear it all together. Let's switch gears to another beat I made. One thing you might not expect with Unclean Machine is that it has a ton of dope lo-fi guitars. So for this next track, I want to pull up early Spanish guitar films that also has that cool projector sound. Let's hear the guitar part with the groove and Celeste Memories. Let's add this backtrack patch for some island flavor and add one of the killer 808s from Unclean, and let's hear the whole thing. That 808 is a beast. So these are just a couple of things I've done with Unclean Machine, and I can't wait to explore all it has to offer. Let's get Eric back to talk about some more sounds.
Awesome, that was great, Cedrick. Love it. All right, let's explore more of the sounds. As you heard in Cedrick's demo, Unclean Machine also includes an amazing selection of retro guitar sounds. Check out this one that sounds like you're playing at the beach at 3 o'clock in the morning. Cool, we can even control how much of the surf there is, how much of the crickets. Tons of vibe. All right, here's also some really cool 50s muted guitar kinds of things. You can even turn that into kind of a Kodo vibe. If I turn up the timbre, and let's turn down the crackle and the wax, bring up the high cut, maybe a little more drift. We'll widen the stereo image, turn up the reverb and the drive, and now we've got so lots of things you can do with the custom controls, and there's so many cool different guitar sounds. Unclean Machine also includes some really wild patches that sound almost like they were riffs lifted off vinyl, but they're actually all created inside Omnisphere. Check out Jazz Heads. It's actually created with a bunch of Chinese instruments, believe it or not. And we can even, with the scenes, slow it down. So we've got and turn it more into this type of thing. Let's check out Harpo Chime. This one I think is really going to be one of the future classics, an Unclean Machine. It's got some really fun scenes. It's like an arpeggiated kind of gliss sound. And when you try the different scenes, you've got like here's another one. And this guy. Super fun sound. And the popcorn sound is such a staple of electronic music, it seems appropriate now that we have microwave popcorn. And the scenes are a lot of fun in this. Check this out. There's also amazing noiseescapes here, and this one was created entirely using a vape pen. So check this out. We've got serious control over the vape environment. We have the deep vapes. We'll take those out and turn up the bubbles. The mid vapes, the high vapes. A very, very cool sound. But remember, kids, vaping is bad for your health. All right, so last example here, I want to show some of the pads because Unclean really has some lovely pads. Here's one called Intimate Warmth. Now I'm going to take the release down and give it a faster playing style. And I'll do the same thing with Love Ensemble, which is a really great string ensemble type of sound. And I put them together, and now I've got. So that sounded really nice. Let's keep going. Let's add a synth sound into it. And that's the Duality Combo Synth, which by itself is pretty clean, but we put it together. And of course, with stack mode, we can add a bass at the bottom of the keyboard for me. So we'll put the undulator saw bass in there, and now we've got So yeah, you can get quite lush with the Unclean pads. Now I'm going to turn it over to our very special guest artist, Bad Snacks, and she's going to show you some really cool stuff she's doing with Unclean Machine.
Thank you, Eric. Unclean Machine is a really cool sonic extension that's got some of our favorite elements of vintage synths, sounds, and even video game nostalgia. We're going to start with a pretty chill twinkly beat, and I'm going to just walk through how I make it. So I'm starting this beat with some chords, and I'm using a patch called Gentle Keys. So there's a timbre knob in the middle of the custom controls panel here that can give you a pretty good idea of just how different one scene can sound. So now that I have my chords all set up, I want to add a little melody here with the Glockenspiel Memories patch because it has a nice small bell sound that I'm looking for, specifically on scene 2, that works really well with the Gentle Keys. So now I want to layer that melody with this glitch stream patch. Scene 1 is already really close to what I'm looking for, but I just want to mellow it out a smidge. This patch uses granular synthesis that starts with a single grain, so I'm going to add more grains by pushing up the depth knob. And then I'm going to smooth it out here. I'm going to engage dual to thicken up the texture. Throw up that echo a little bit. And then high cut it just a smidge. And then with that, now to make it sound a little bit more magical and twinkly, we have this gramophone rain patch, which is perfect, and I can even manipulate the reverb and a few other parameters simultaneously through the mod wheel to open it up into this whole meteor shower type effect. Now there's this beautiful patch called Harpeggio that emulates a kind of electronic harp sound. And every single one of these scenes sounds so different even though they're all from the same sound source. So now to add low end to the track, I'm using this tape sub patch, which is one of a ton of great sounding basses in Unclean Machine. Scene 3 sounds super balanced, but in this track, because there's so many mids and highs going on, it might be a little hard to hear because of everything else that's going on. But fortunately, it's super easy to tweak these parameters. So I can adjust harmonic, the shaper, as well as the flame. And then suddenly, it's going to just cut through a lot more while still holding that great low end. So here's how all the elements work together in the whole beat with my drums. So let's try something a little different. This is gonna be a little bit more of an upbeat, funky track. And for this beat, I'm gonna start with a patch called Click Tone Tape. And I'm just gonna sift through a couple different scenes here. So I love the pluckiness of scene 3, but I love the overtones and the reverb of scene 2. So I'm going to edit scene 3 to kind of combine the character of both of them. On this custom control panel, I'm going to engage the high overtones, and then I'm going to throw the blur of the reverb up. And then you can hear from this drop-down menu, we have a couple post-reverb effects like up, down, dual, steal, coil. And up is just a way of pitch shifting the reverb up, so you get this effect. You can hear the tail. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to layer this patch, but with way more reverb. And you'll see that there's a custom controls button up here that when you press it, you go back to the main Omnisphere menu and you can actually go to your effects rack from there. So you can see that I have my unclean verb here and I can set it to about a 50% mix. So if I play them together, it adds a bunch of atmosphere. So I want to layer this one more time just to get a little bit more pluck in there. And I'm using this patch called Age Spring Mutes. And scene 1 is basically what I'm looking for anyway. So I just want to turn the octave mix up just a smidge. And then when you play those 3 patches together, it cuts through really nicely and it's a great texture in the mix. Now this patch is a fun one. There are a bunch of these sequencer patches that make for great rhythmic elements, and this one is called Clown Rodeo. I already really like the rhythm of scene 5, so I'm going to engage bleep 2 and throw the level up just a little bit with some echo, and I'm also going to engage the synth. And that's going to be the rhythm kind of on top of the beat. I love video game sounds and I use arpeggiators in my music all the time, so as soon as I heard Arcade Nights, I knew I was going to end up using it everywhere. I'm going to use scene 1 here. And I've even MIDI mapped the reduction and mix to my knobs here to give it an even more kind of 8-bit effect. And what I can do is I can cut the highs and engage the reverb a little bit. And then we have this. Now, potentially my favorite part of this whole track is this bass. It already sounded great and balanced on scene 4, but the color knob and the spin settings bring out so much personality in the bass, and I have them mapped to my MIDI controller. So now let's hear all the sounds together with my drums, and I'll tweak the bass as we go. probably tell, I've been having a blast with this, and now I'm gonna hand it back to Eric.
Thank you, Snacks. Very, very cool stuff. So this has been really nice for us to see what our guests have cooked up. We've gotten to do a lot together today, exploring some of the interesting and amazing possibilities within Unclean Machine. But of course, with nearly 2,000 sounds, it's really just the beginning of what you can do. So go crazy and just have fun with it.